Hello everyone! I'm very excited to make this piece today, which is the reversible stretch midi dress. So a couple of things to note before we get started. I use 4-way stretch spandex, and I like spandex that has at least 15% elastane in it. If you go any less, sometimes you have fabric that doesn't recover well and it's going to stretch over time. So I probably wouldn't recommend that. Technically you could have a fabric with less elastane in it, but yeah, just be prepared for it to not hold up well over time for something like this. So I use 4-way stretch fabric, which means it stretches across and vertically. And I use fabric that has about 40% stretch, which means 10 centimeters of fabric will stretch to 14 centimeters of fabric. If you have fabric that has less stretch than that, you may need to size up, and if you have fabric that has more stretch than that, you may need to size down. But it's always good to do a test with some leftover spandex fabric with a new design. I do that every single time I do a new design. That way the second time it's always perfect. So I've decided to use plain black spandex as my inner layer, and I am using this glitter 4-way stretch fabric as my outer layer. So this design is reversible, which means it can be worn both ways. So you need to keep that in mind when you choose a color, because if you have different inside versus outside, you need to remember that your straps are going to be seen with both. So I've got plain black straps to go with this glitter side, which I think will be fine because they're quite narrow. And then obviously it matches the black on the inside. So we might actually start with the straps here. So I've got my straps. I'm going to fold them in half, and I'm going to stitch 1 centimeter away from the fold all the way along. So I use my overlocker as standard, but you can also use a sewing machine. So I'll show you both. So this is what it will look like if you have overlocked it. And I've just done an example with a zigzag stitch as well. And this goes for the rest of the dress. So you can do all of the seams with this zigzag stitch. It just needs to be zigzag because that way it can be stretched. So since I've zigzag stitched this one, I'm going to trim the edge. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn it around using a loop turner. If you don't have a loop turner, you can use a safety pin. But if you're going to be doing, a design with straps frequently, I would definitely recommend going out of your way to get one of these. It was only about 10 Australian dollars, so it's very affordable. So you just put it into the strap, you hook the very end, and you pull it through. So your strap will look like that. So I'll do the other one as well. Now I have some 6mm elastic here. You can use anything close to this. If you can't find 6 exactly, then just use whatever you can find. And we are going to use our loop turner to put them on the inside of the straps. So I'm going to thread the loop turner through the strap here. Going to hook on the elastic, and I'm going to pull it through. I'm going to trim off the edge and just hold it in place with a clip. So then this is what it looks like. I'm going to do the same for the other side. I'm going to place these straps off to the side. Now I'm going to take my front and back pieces. So you can see the back piece has a deeper scoop. That is just how you're going to tell them apart. So I'm going to start with my front piece. I'm going to place it right side facing up. I'm going to take the front piece in this black fabric as well, and I'm going to place it right side facing down, so that we have the right sides together on this one. Now the seams that we want to do at the moment are the neckline, the armholes, and the very bottom, which I'll show you what it looks like after I've clipped it all. So this is what it will look like. We're going to sew the armhole, neck hole, and the very bottom of the dress as well. And we're going to do the exact same step for the back. So I finished these seams. We're going to work with the front piece, so I'll put the back piece just off to the side for a moment. We're going to need our straps and the front piece. So I'm just going to turn it around because I'm right-handed. I find it a bit easier to do it on this side. So we have the straps and we want to thread them through these shoulder sections here. So I'll take one at a time, put it on the inside, thread it through, and I'm going to clip it in place. There we go. I'll do the same for the other side. Clip that in place. I'm going to secure these with a straight stitch. When you do this, just make sure you go back and forth a few times to make it nice and secure. So this here is what it will look like. I'm going to trim off the bulk. Now I'm going to turn this the right way around. And now we're going to put it on the inside of the back piece. But before we do that, I like to add clips all the way along the edge before putting it in, because that way it's just much easier to handle, because you know exactly where each part is supposed to be going. I'm going to put clips on the end of the straps as well. Amazing. I'm going to get the back piece now. Okay, so what I'm going to do first is very similar to the last step, and put these straps in through these shoulder sections here. But something important that you need to make sure you do on this step is have right side on right side. So that means my glitter fabric needs to be going against my glitter fabric here. So hopefully you can see the difference between these two. So since my glitter fabric is on the top, my glitter fabric is on the top on here for this side as well. So I'm going to take my strap, feed it through. Now when you do this, you need to make sure you're keeping your straps flat. You don't want to accidentally twist them. It'll be a bit uncomfortable. So my strap is flat. I'm going to feed it into the other side. Now I'm going to line up the side seams. So I'm going to take this side, feed it through, line it up with this seam here. Now you want to push it all the way up to the edge. This is exactly where it's handy to have these clips already on the front piece, because all you have to do is grab the clip, put it through, and then line it up with the other side. I'm going to finish lining up this side seam here. There we go. I'm going to do the same on this side as well. So when you do this, just make sure you haven't accidentally twisted or folded something. You want to make sure that it's flat. There we go. So we're going to sew these side seams here, and we're also going to do the same step and put a straight stitch along here, going back and forth a few times to make it nice and sturdy. That's all done. I've done the side seams. And these straps up here, I'm just going to trim off this bulk. Now for these edges, if you've used an overlocker, you're going to have a bit of a trail here. If you've used a zigzag stitch, you've likely backstitched at the corner, so you're fine to just trim it off. But with an overlocker, we just want to put in a little knot. And then just trim off the excess. There are neater ways to do it, but since it's the inside of the dress, it's not going to be seen anyway. Now the very last step, and also what makes this reversible, is the fact that we have finished the bottom seam. So we need to seam rip about 5 centimeters to create an opening. and we are going to grab the inner section and turn the entire thing inside out. If 5 centimeters is not wide enough for you, you can make a bigger hole. There we go. Now we are going to close the hole. So I'll trim off the little extra threads first, but we're going to close this hole with a straight stitch. So I've just closed that hole with a little straight stitch. I'm going to trim off these loose threads. I did notice my invisible seams were slipping around because spandex can be very slippery. And so when I had the glittery side on, some black was poking through, or when I had the black side on, some glitter was poking through. So I've gone around and finished every seam with a zigzag top stitch all the way around. And I also did it at the bottom as well. And I personally think that that's just created a much cleaner finish. And it does stop the opposite color from accidentally coming through as you're wearing it and moving it around. So I wanted to add in this little step for you. I highly recommend it, but it is technically optional, and if your item is all one color, you really don't need to do it. But if you want it to be reversible, I highly recommend finishing these seams here.